Chapter 1: The Domestic Sanctuary, the Ancient Egyptian Home, the Sun. A fiery orb began its slow descent over the western desert, painting the sky in hues of orange and deep violet. For the ancient Egyptian, this daily celestial performance marked not merely the passage of time, but the welcome transition from the unrelenting heat and labor of the day to the promise of domestic respite. A quiet refuge where the burdens of the fields, the workshops, or the bureaucratic offices could be gently set aside. The home, whether a humble mud-brick dwelling or a grand estate, was more than just a shelter. It was a sanctuary. Life in ancient Egypt was inextricably linked to the Nile, and so too were the homes that lined its fertile banks. Constructed primarily from sun-dried mud-brick, often reinforced with straw, these dwellings were remarkably well suited to the climate. The thick walls provided excellent insulation, keeping the interiors cool during the scorching daytime hours and retaining a gentle warmth as the desert nights descended. The very act of their construction, the methodical layering of brick upon brick, embodied a quiet practicality, a fundamental understanding of their environment. The typical ancient Egyptian home, even for families of modest means, was often laid out with a thoughtful efficiency that prioritized comfort and airflow. Most homes were single-story, though wealthier residences might boast a second level. The entrance would commonly lead into a central courtyard, an open-air space that served multiple purposes. It was here that many domestic tasks took place: grinding grain, preparing food, weaving cloth. But as evening approached, this courtyard transformed. It became a cooler, more spacious extension of the indoor living areas, a place where the family could gather, away from the enclosed rooms, to catch the faintest breeze. The sounds of daily chores would slowly fade, replaced by the gentle murmurs of conversation or the quiet rustle of evening preparations. Beyond the courtyard, the main living areas typically comprised a reception room, often the largest space, and several smaller bedrooms. The roofs, flat and often accessible by a staircase, offered another retreat. In the oppressive heat of summer, many families would carry their mats and bedding onto the rooftops to sleep under the vast, star-strewn sky, benefiting from the cooling night air that rose from the desert. The silence up there, broken only by the distant calls of nocturnal creatures or the soft lapping of the Nile, must have been a profoundly peaceful experience after a day of toil. The furnishings within these homes were, by modern standards, sparse, yet they were designed with an elegance born of functionality. Beds, for example, were often simple wooden frames, sometimes with woven string or leather straps supporting a mattress stuffed with straw or wool. They were frequently elevated on legs to allow for air circulation beneath, a crucial detail in a warm climate, and protect elaborate hairstyles, while also promoting airflow around the head and neck, contributing to a cooler, more restful sleep. For support, a headrest carved from wood, stone, or even ivory served as a pillow. These headrests, though seemingly uncomfortable to modern sensibilities, were designed to elevate the head. The smooth, cool surface of stone headrests, in particular, would have provided a welcome sensation against the skin after a hot day. Chairs and stools, similarly made of wood, were low to the ground, reflecting a preference for sitting closer to the floor. These were not plush, upholstered pieces, but rather sturdy, functional items designed for posture and support during quiet conversations or solitary contemplation. Storage was often provided by clay pots and jars, neatly arranged along walls, or in simple wooden chests. These held grains, oils, linens, and personal possessions, keeping the living spaces uncluttered and promoting a sense of order. The quiet clinking of pottery as items were retrieved or stored would have been a familiar, soothing sound. The rhythm of the household dictated the pace of winding down. As the sun dipped lower, the activities outside would gradually cease. The tools of the day's labor would be cleaned and put away with a methodical calm. Women would tend to the final preparations for the evening meal, the low hum of their voices and the gentle clatter of pottery echoing softly. Children, their boundless energy slowly waning, would gather closer to their parents, their play becoming less boisterous, more contained. This gradual deceleration was an integral part of the unwinding process. The transition from the brilliance of daylight to the deep shadows of evening was managed with simple yet effective lighting. Small oil lamps, typically shallow pottery bowls with a floating wick, would be lit as dusk settled. The gentle flicker of the flame cast dancing shadows on the mud brick walls, creating an intimate and cozy atmosphere. The faint aroma of burning oil, perhaps mixed with the scent of cooked food or the lingering fragrance of flowers from a nearby garden, would have permeated the air, adding another layer to the sensory experience of evening. And the profound peace of knowing that for a few precious hours the demanding world outside could wait. These lamps provided just enough light for essential tasks, but their primary purpose was to soften the transition to night, signaling a time for rest, quiet conversation, and reflection. The silence of the ancient Egyptian home after a long day was not an empty void, but a quiet fullness. It was the sound of a family breathing, the soft rustle of linen, the gentle glow of a lamp. The home was truly a domestic sanctuary, a place where the ancient Egyptian could shed the day's burdens and prepare for the restorative balm of sleep. Chapter 2: The Art of Ablution, Baths, and Personal Hygiene. As the last lingering glow of sunset faded beyond the western horizon, the ancient Egyptian turned their attention inward, towards the comforting rituals of personal care. Cleanliness in ancient Egypt was more than a mere practical necessity. It was imbued with profound religious and cultural significance. To be pure, both physically and spiritually, was essential for approaching the gods, for participating in sacred rites, and for simply maintaining one's well-being in a land of dust and heat. The daily act of ablution was, therefore, a quiet ceremony, a winding down of the day's grime and a preparation for restful repose. Unlike the elaborate public bathhouses of later Roman times, ancient Egyptian bathing was typically a simpler, more private affair. Homes of varying sizes, from modest dwellings to grand villas, often incorporated spaces dedicated to washing. These might be simple corners with a large pottery basin for water, or more refined bathing rooms featuring a stone slab where water could be poured over the body and then drained away. The sound of water poured from a vessel, splashing gently against stone or skin, would have been a profoundly soothing auditory cue, signaling the end of physical exertion and the beginning of personal renewal. The process itself was straightforward and effective. Water, drawn from the Nile or from wells, was heated, if desired, in pottery vessels over a small fire, or simply used at room temperature. The Egyptian did not use modern soap. Instead, they relied on natron, a naturally occurring salt mixture, often combined with oil. This mixture, when rubbed onto the skin, served as both a cleanser and a mild exfoliant. The sensation of the gritty natron paste being worked over the body, gently sloughing away the day's accumulated dust and sweat, would have been a tactile form of release. Afterward, copious amounts of water would be poured or splashed over the body to rinse away the cleansing mixture, leaving the skin feeling refreshed and invigorated. Once cleansed, the application of oils and perfumes became the next step in this nightly ritual. Ancient Egyptians were renowned for their sophisticated use of unguents and fragrant substances. These were not merely for vanity. They served practical purposes too. In the dry climate, oils often derived from plants like moringa, castor, or olive helped to moisturize and protect the skin from cracking and sun damage. They also acted as a base for various fragrant resins and flowers, creating personal perfumes that lingered subtly on the skin. The smooth, gliding motion of oil being massaged into the limbs, the shoulders, and the neck would have been deeply relaxing. The gentle, aromatic scents, perhaps of frankincense, myrrh, or lotus, would have wafted through the air, creating an atmosphere of calm and luxury, even in the simplest of homes. This was a moment of mindful self-anointment, a quiet indulgence after the day's labors. Hair care, too, played a significant role in the evening's preparations. Both men and women often wore their hair short or shaved their heads for hygiene and comfort in the heat. However, for those with longer hair or wigs, the evening presented an opportunity for grooming, and the subtle scent of perfumed oils being smoothed through the hair would have contributed to a sense of order and tranquility. Combing through hair, removing tangles, and applying aromatic oils to condition the scalp and strands was a repetitive, meditative act. The soft scratch of a bone or wooden comb, the gentle pull as knots were worked free. For some, this might have involved the careful placement of hair ornaments or the preparation of wigs for the next day, each movement deliberate and unhurried. The array of tools for personal hygiene was simple yet effective. Bronze razors for shaving, tweezers for plucking, and small obsidian or flint knives for trimming nails were common. Kohl, made from galena, was applied around the eyes, not just for beauty, but also to protect against the glare of the sun and to deter insects. Its application would have been a delicate, focused task. Containers for these cosmetics and tools were often beautifully crafted, made from alabaster wood or fiancé, adding an aesthetic pleasure to the daily routine. The quiet sounds of these small, precise actions, the gentle scraping of a razor, the soft click of a cosmetic pot being opened, the faint scent of coal, were integral to the nightly winding down, and the soothing touch of oils were all sensory anchors guiding the ancient Egyptian towards rest. Even the simplest of daily routines carried a quiet dignity. The act of disrobing after a long day, shedding the linen garments that had absorbed the sun and dust, was in itself a physical liberation. The cool air on the skin after the clothes were removed, the feeling of water cleansing the body. These rituals of ablution and personal care were not just about physical cleanliness. They were about cleansing the mind, shedding the day's burdens, and preparing the self for the quietude of the night. They were moments of solitary peace, a personal communion with the body before surrendering to the embrace of sleep. Chapter 3: Culinary Comforts, Food and Drink at Day's End. After the day's labor and the calming rituals of personal ablution, the ancient Egyptian household turned its attention to the evening meal. This was a time for communal gathering, for the simple pleasure of sustenance, and for the quiet winding down that accompanies shared food and drink. The preparation and consumption of the evening meal was a deeply ingrained routine, providing both physical nourishment and a sense of domestic harmony. The staple diet of ancient Egypt was remarkably consistent across social strata, though quantities and occasional luxuries varied. The cornerstone of every meal was bread, made primarily from emmer, wheat, or barley. The rhythmic grinding of grain, a sound often heard throughout the day, would have quieted as evening approached, as the daily baking was likely completed earlier. Loaves of various shapes and sizes, perhaps still slightly warm from the communal or household oven, would be brought to the table. The mild, earthy scent of freshly baked bread was a comforting aroma, signifying a readily available and familiar source of energy. Accompanying the bread, and just as fundamental, was beer. This was not the alcoholic beverage we know today, but a thick, nutritious liquid, often cloudy, with residual grain particles. It was a significant source of calories, vitamins, and hydration in the ancient diet, consumed by adults and children alike. The act of pouring beer from a large pottery jar into smaller individual cups would have been a common evening sound. A gentle gurgle, followed by the settling of foam. Its slightly sour, malty taste was a familiar and comforting part of every meal, a steadying presence after hours of physical exertion. Vegetables formed a crucial part of the evening fare, providing freshness and essential nutrients. Onions, garlic, leeks, lettuce, cucumbers, and lentils were commonly cultivated and consumed. These would have been prepared simply, perhaps boiled or eaten raw, their crisp textures and earthy flavors providing a pleasant contrast to the bread and beer. The quiet chopping of vegetables, the rustle of greens being washed, and the subtle sense of these fresh ingredients contributed to the domestic symphony of the evening meal. For those with access to gardens, the picking of these vegetables just before consumption would have added an extra layer of freshness, a connection to the fertile land. Fruit, when in season, offered a welcome sweetness and variety. Dates, figs, grapes, and pomegranates were enjoyed as desserts or snacks. The slow, deliberate peeling of a fig or the careful separation of grape clusters would have been small, unhurried gestures embodying the relaxed pace of evening. The natural sweetness and juicy textures were simple luxuries, savored in the quiet company of family. Meat was a less frequent, but highly prized, addition to the diet, typically reserved for wealthier households or special occasions. Fish, however, was more readily available, especially for those living close to the Nile. Dried, salted, or grilled fish would have provided a valuable source of protein. The subtle aroma of cooked fish, perhaps mixed with herbs, would have signaled a more substantial meal, a welcome indulgence. Poultry, such as ducks or geese, might also grace the table on occasion, though these were often reared for eggs as much as for meat. The gentle sounds of bones being picked clean, or the quiet chewing of a more substantial portion, indicated a deep satisfaction. The preparation of these meals was often a collaborative effort within the household. While women typically managed the cooking, other family members might assist with drawing water, tending a fire, or arranging the food. The communal nature of meal preparation and consumption fostered a sense of togetherness, strengthening family bonds as the day wound down. There was no rush. The day's work was done, and the focus shifted to the shared moment of nourishment. Dining itself was likely a simple affair. Families would sit on mats on the floor, or on low stools, around a shared table or a raised mat. Food was eaten primarily with the hands, though spoons might have been used for softer dishes. The quiet murmurs of conversation, perhaps recounting the day's events or discussing plans for the morrow, would have filled the air. There was a comfortable familiarity in these interactions, a sense of belonging that contributed significantly to the evening's relaxation. The focus was on the simple act of eating, of satisfying hunger, and of being present with loved ones. After the meal, the clearing of dishes was another unhurried process. Pottery vessels would be scraped clean and perhaps rinsed with water, then neatly stacked away for the next day. The last sips of beer would be consumed, the final crumbs of bread gathered. The lingering sense of the meal would slowly dissipate, replaced by the cooler, fresher air of the night entering the home, and the quiet satisfaction of ending the day, well-fed and content, ready for the restorative peace of the approaching darkness. The ancient Egyptian evening meal was not just about food, it was about the ritual, the community. Chapter 4: The gentle breeze of entertainment, games, and recreation. With stomachs full and the initial weariness of the day beginning to subside, the ancient Egyptians often turned their attention to various forms of gentle entertainment and recreation. These activities, whether solitary or communal, offered a quiet diversion, a mental shift away from the responsibilities of daily life, and a path towards deeper relaxation before sleep. The sounds associated with these pastimes were typically low and soothing, adding to the calming atmosphere of the evening. Among the most popular forms of recreation were board games, particularly Sanat and Mahon. Sanat, meaning passing, was perhaps the most iconic, played on a rectangular board with 30 squares. The precise rules are still debated by Egyptologists, but it was clearly a game of strategy and chance, involving the movement of pawns based on throws of knucklebones or stick dice, the quiet clatter of the dice, the careful placement of the game pieces, and the focused silence as players contemplated their next move would have been the dominant sounds. It was a game that encouraged thoughtful engagement rather than boisterous excitement, a perfect activity for winding down. Playing Sanat was believed by some to have spiritual significance, symbolizing the journey of the deceased through the afterlife, adding a layer of contemplation to the leisure. Mahon, or the snake game, was another intriguing board game, characterized by its spiral design resembling a coiled snake. This game, played with lion-shaped and sphere-shaped pieces, also involved dice or knucklebones. Like Sanat, it demanded concentration and a quiet, strategic mind, and the quiet discussions of strategy would have filled the evening air, creating a tranquil environment. The smooth feel of the carved game pieces in the hand, the soft thud as they were placed on the board. The soft thud of a dropped doll, the quiet hum of a top, or the murmured conversations of children engaging in imaginative play would have blended into the background sounds of the evening. Outdoor play would have shifted to less energetic activities as twilight deepened, perhaps involving drawing in the dust with a stick or arranging pebbles into patterns. The gentle winding down of youthful energy was a natural prelude to sleep. Storytelling was a profoundly cherished form of entertainment, particularly in the absence of written books for the vast majority of the population. As families gathered, perhaps around a flickering oil lamp or beneath the moonlit sky in the courtyard, tales would be spun. These could be ancient myths of gods and goddesses recounting their exploits and wisdom, or legends of heroic pharaohs and daring adventurers. Historical accounts, passed down through generations, might also be shared. The quiet cadence of a storyteller's voice, the hushed gasps of listeners, and the comfortable silence between pauses would have created an immersive and calming experience. It was a shared journey into worlds of imagination, a gentle escape from the mundane. The flickering light and the slow pace of the narrative encouraged a meditative state, drawing listeners into the spoken words. Music and dance, while often part of more vibrant festivities, also had their place in the quiet moments of the evening. A solitary individual might play a small harp or a lute, its gentle plucking sounds resonating softly in the quiet home. The clear, reedy notes of a flute or clarinet, played perhaps by a family member, could drift through the air, their melodies soothing and contemplative. These were not performances for a crowd, but rather personal expressions or quiet background accompaniments to the evening's activities. The subtle tapping of fingers on a drum or a tambourine, providing a soft rhythm, could accompany a quiet song sung in a low voice. The focus was on the gentle, calming qualities of the sound, allowing the listener to drift into a state of serene contemplation. Even dance, in a domestic setting, might be a slow, rhythmic sway, a quiet movement that released residual tension from the body. And gazing at the vast expanse of the night sky, watching the stars slowly emerge, would have been a profound source of peace. Beyond structured activities, there was the simple enjoyment of quiet observation. Sitting in the cool evening air, perhaps in a garden or on a rooftop, the distant murmurs of the village, the faint sound of the Nile's flow, and the gentle sigh of the desert wind were the natural soundscape for quiet contemplation, and its ability to transport the mind away from the daily grind. These unhurried moments of passive enjoyment, without the demand for active engagement, were essential for true relaxation. The gentle breeze, carrying the faint scent of desert flora, would brush against the skin, adding to the sensory quietude. The entertainment of ancient Egyptians, after a long day, was characterized by its gentle nature, its focus on quiet engagement. These were not boisterous celebrations, but rather subtle pleasures that fostered mental tranquility and prepared the body and mind for the deep rest of sleep. The sounds were soft, the movements unhurried, and the atmosphere imbued with a profound sense of peace. Chapter 5: The Sweet Silence of Sleep. Beds, dreams, and nighttime rituals. As the last embers of the oil lamp flickered, and the soft sounds of evening faded into silence, the ancient Egyptian prepared for the deep, restorative embrace of sleep. This final act of the day was approached with a quiet reverence, for sleep was not merely an absence of consciousness, but a vital journey, a time for the body to heal and the spirit to engage with other realms. The arrangements for sleep, the subtle sounds of the night, and the beliefs surrounding dreams all contributed to a unique nighttime experience. Sleeping arrangements in ancient Egypt were designed with both comfort and practicality in mind, especially given the warm climate. Beds were typically simple wooden frames, often elevated off the ground to allow for air circulation and to deter pests. These frames might have a woven support made from rope or leather straps, upon which a mat woven from reeds, palm leaves, or linen would be placed. For cushioning, a mattress stuffed with straw, wool, or soft fibers might be added. The slight rustle of the mat as one settled down, or the soft give of the stuffed mattress, were subtle auditory signals of the transition to rest. Perhaps the most distinctive feature of an ancient Egyptian bed was the headrest, made from wood, alabaster, faience, or sometimes ivory. These curved supports were designed to elevate the head and neck, protecting elaborate hairstyles and promoting airflow, while seemingly unyielding to modern eyes. A well-crafted headrest, perhaps custom-fitted to the individual, could provide surprising comfort. The cool, smooth surface of a stone headrest against the skin, especially on a warm night, would have been a profoundly soothing sensation. The act of gently positioning the head on the headrest, finding that perfect point of balance, was a quiet, preparatory gesture for sleep. For those of more modest means, a simple mat laid directly on the cool, packed earth floor would suffice. In the intense heat of summer, many families, as mentioned before, would carry their mats to the flat rooftops of their homes to sleep under the open sky. Here, the vast canopy of stars would unfold above them, and the gentle night breeze, carrying the faint scent of the desert, would provide natural air conditioning. The soundscape would be dominated by the subtle movements of the air, the distant call of a jackal, or the soft hoot of an owl, all contributing to a profound sense of quietude and connection to the natural world. The act of falling asleep in ancient Egypt was a gradual surrender to the quietude of the night. The absence of pervasive artificial light meant that true darkness would descend, encouraging the body's natural rhythms. Nocturnal sounds, the chirping of crickets, the rustle of palm fronds, the gentle murmur of the Nile in the distance, the sounds of the day, the bustling market, the cries of street vendors, the clatter of workshops, would fade, replaced by a symphony of softer. These natural rhythms created an environment conducive to deep, uninterrupted sleep. The simple act of lying still, feeling the warmth dissipate from the body, and listening to these quiet sounds would have lulled the ancient Egyptian into slumber. Dreams held significant importance in ancient Egyptian belief. They were often viewed as messages from the gods, prophecies of the future, or insights into hidden truths. Temples dedicated to specific deities, such as Serapis, even had dream incubation rooms where individuals would sleep, hoping to receive divine guidance through their dreams. The belief that dreams were meaningful added a layer of quiet anticipation and contemplation to the act of sleeping. Upon waking, individuals might recall their dreams, pondering their significance, a quiet internal dialogue before the day's activities began. This understanding of dreams transformed sleep from a mere physical necessity into a spiritual journey, a dialogue with the unseen. Dance and protection against evil might be placed near the bed or worn on the body. To ensure a safe and restful sleep, ancient Egyptians sometimes engaged in small, personal nighttime rituals. Protective amulets, often depicting deities like Toret or Base, the dwarf god of music. These were not grand ceremonies, but quiet, personal acts of seeking reassurance and warding off malevolent forces. Simple prayers or incantations might be whispered before closing the eyes, invoking the protection of benevolent gods for a peaceful night. the quiet placement of an amulet, the soft murmur of a whispered prayer, were subtle gestures of faith that brought comfort and peace of mind. The silence of the ancient Egyptian night was a deep, encompassing quietude, broken only by the sounds of nature or the soft breathing of the household, and quiet, and a cultural belief in the significance of dreams, transformed the act of sleeping into a profound and restorative experience. It was a silence that invited introspection, rest, and connection to a world beyond the waking realm. The combination of simple, functional sleeping arrangements, the presence of natural darkness, the ancient Egyptian, after a long and demanding day, could surrender to the sweet silence of the night, confident in the promise of renewal that dawn would bring. Chapter 6: The Soothing Embrace of Nature. Gardens and outdoor spaces for many ancient Egyptians, particularly those with the means, the home extended beyond its mud-brick walls to include carefully cultivated outdoor spaces, offering a soothing embrace of nature that provided respite from the heat and the demands of daily life. These green havens were designed not just for practical purposes, like food production, but for aesthetic pleasure and the profound sense of tranquility they bestowed. Typically enclosed by a wall for privacy and protection, these gardens were often laid out in a precise geometric fashion, reflecting their love of order and symmetry. The soft crunch of sand or small pebbles underfoot as one strolled through these pathways would have been a gentle, rhythmic sound. At the heart of many larger gardens was a central pool or pond, often rectangular and lined with stone or brick. This water feature was not merely decorative. It was a focal point, reflecting the sky and the surrounding greenery. Lotus and papyrus plants might float on its surface, their delicate forms adding to the beauty. More importantly, the presence of water brought a profound sense of calm. The gentle ripple of water disturbed by a soft breeze, or the quiet lapping against the edges of the pond, would have been an endlessly soothing sound, a balm for the ears after the louder noises of the day. The presence of water also attracted birds, whose quiet chirps and wing beats added to the natural symphony of the garden. Trees were carefully chosen for their shade, their fruit, and their fragrance. Date palms, with their tall, slender trunks and rustling fronds, provided welcome shade and delicious fruit. Sycamore figs, their broad leaves offering dense shade, were also common. Tamarisk, acacia, and Persea trees would have added to the leafy canopy. The soft rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze, the subtle creak of branches, and the dappled sunlight filtering through the foliage created a visually and acoustically calming environment. The distinct, earthy scent of damp soil after watering, mingled with the sweet fragrance of blossoms, would have enveloped the senses. Vines of grapes might be trained over trellises, offering both shade and fruit. Flowering plants like roses, lilies, and mandrakes would have added bursts of color and exquisite perfumes. Herbs for culinary and medicinal purposes would also be cultivated. The subtle buzzing of bees among the blossoms, the occasional gentle flutter of a butterfly, and the quiet beauty of a blooming flower would have encouraged a sense of peaceful contemplation. The act of simply sitting and observing the growth, the life within the garden, was a form of gentle meditation. Sitting in the cool evening air within these gardens was a cherished way to unwind. After the sun had dipped below the horizon, the thick walls of the home and the dense foliage of the garden would have retained a pleasant coolness. A low chair or a comfortable mat placed in a shaded spot would provide the perfect vantage point. One could simply sit, feeling the gentle breeze, listening to the subtle sounds of the garden, and observing the changing colors of the twilight sky. This quiet communion with nature allowed the mind to slow, to shed the day's anxieties, and to find a profound sense of peace. Even for those without elaborate gardens, smaller outdoor spaces offered similar benefits. Courtyards, as mentioned in Chapter 1, served as multifunctional areas that could be transformed into quiet retreats in the evening. A few potted plants, a small pool of water in a basin, or simply an open view of the sky could provide a connection to nature. The flat rooftops of homes also offered a simple, accessible outdoor space, particularly on warm nights. Lying on a mat on the rooftop, gazing at the myriad stars, feeling the gentle night air, and listening to the distant sounds of the world going to sleep was an equally profound way to relax. The vastness of the cosmos provided a perspective that diminished daily worries. The soothing embrace of nature, whether in a grand garden or a simple rooftop, played a crucial role in the ancient Egyptians' daily relaxation. These natural elements provided a profound and accessible source of tranquility, allowing the body and mind to unwind and prepare for the deep rest of the night. Chapter 7: Spiritual Solace, Prayer, Offerings, and Personal Piety Beyond the Physical Comforts and Domestic Routines. Ancient Egyptians found profound relaxation and peace in their spiritual lives. Their world was permeated by a deep sense of the divine, and personal piety offered a powerful source of solace, providing a framework for understanding existence and a means of seeking comfort and guidance. These spiritual practices, often quiet and personal, contributed significantly to the inner tranquility of the individual at the end of a long day. Private devotion was a cornerstone of ancient Egyptian religious practice for the common person. While grand temples were reserved for priests and official ceremonies, the home often contained small, personal altars or shrines. These might be simple niches in a wall, or a dedicated corner where images or small statues of household deities were placed. Gods and goddesses associated with protection, fertility, and daily well-being, such as Toret Base, or specific local deities, were often venerated in this intimate setting. The quiet act of arranging a small offering or gently cleaning a divine image would have been a personal, meditative gesture. Simple prayers were offered regularly, not necessarily in formal recitations, but as quiet, heartfelt appeals or expressions of gratitude. Before sleep, an individual might whisper a prayer for protection during the night, or for guidance in a dream. They might give thanks for the day's blessings, a good harvest, healthy children, or simply the gift of sustenance. The low murmur of a personal prayer, spoken in the privacy of one's thoughts or in hushed tones, was a soothing release of worries and an affirmation of faith. It was a moment of direct connection with the divine, bypassing the grandeur of the temple and reaching for a more intimate relationship with the cosmos. Offerings, even small ones, were a common way to express piety and seek divine favor. These were not always elaborate sacrifices. A small libation of water poured before a deity's image, a freshly baked loaf of bread, a few dates, or a handful of incense could constitute a meaningful offering. The gentle pouring of water, the quiet placement of food, or the subtle wisp of smoke from burning incense would have been deliberate, calming actions. The faint, sweet aroma of frankincense or myrrh as it drifted upwards was a sensory link to the divine, creating an atmosphere of sanctity and peace within the home. These acts were expressions of gratitude and a quiet request for continued well-being. The concept of mat was central to ancient Egyptian thought, encompassing truth, justice, balance, and cosmic order. Living in accordance with mat was believed to bring harmony and prosperity, both individually and collectively. Reflecting on the principles of mat at the end of the day, reviewing one's actions, seeking inner balance, and striving for ethical conduct could be a profound source of mental tranquility. It was a quiet form of self-examination, a way to ensure one was aligned with the cosmic order, which in turn brought inner peace and reduced anxiety about the world. This introspection was not self-critical in a harsh way, but rather a gentle seeking of equilibrium. Dreams, as explored in Chapter 5, were often seen as a significant channel for divine communication. This belief transformed the act of sleeping into a potential dialogue with the gods. Individuals might actively seek divine counsel through dreams, preparing themselves before sleep with quiet contemplation or specific invocations. The anticipation of a meaningful dream, coupled with the belief in its divine origin, would have provided a powerful sense of connection and comfort. Even if a dream was not immediately understood, the knowledge that the gods were communicating offered a profound sense of not being alone in the universe. This made the journey into sleep a more purposeful and less daunting experience. The presence of funerary beliefs, though seemingly somber, also provided a unique form of spiritual solace. The ancient Egyptians believed in a well-defined afterlife, a continuation of existence in a blissful realm. This belief provided immense comfort and reduced the fear of death. Knowing that there was a pathway to eternal life, provided one lived righteously and adhered to the proper rituals, brought a profound sense of security. The preparation for eternity, through various acts and beliefs, was not a cause for anxiety, but a structured approach to ensuring a peaceful passage. This underlying spiritual framework, focusing on order, continuity, and divine protection, permeated daily life and offered a deep, quiet sense of reassurance, allowing the ancient Egyptian to rest peacefully, confident in their place within the cosmic order. The quiet contemplation of their immortal soul and its journey was a comforting thought. The spiritual life of the ancient Egyptian, woven into the fabric of their daily existence, offered a profound source of solace and relaxation after a long day. Through personal altars, quiet prayers, humble offerings, and a deep understanding of mat and the afterlife, individuals found a calming connection to the divine. These practices, often conducted in quiet solitude or within the intimate family circle, fostered inner peace, providing a gentle balm for the mind and spirit as they prepared for the tranquility of sleep. Chapter 8. Artistic expression and contemplation beyond the necessities of life and the direct pursuit of leisure. Ancient Egyptians found quiet, relaxation, and deep satisfaction in various forms of artistic expression and the contemplation of beauty. The creation of crafts, the observation of art, and the intricate beauty of written language offered meditative outlets, allowing the mind to focus, to create, and to appreciate in a calm and unhurried manner. These activities, often performed in quiet concentration, contributed to a profound sense of inner peace at the close of a demanding day. The creation of utilitarian objects was often imbued with an artistic sensibility. Pottery, for instance, was not merely functional, but also aesthetically pleasing. The slow, rhythmic turning of the potter's wheel, the shaping of clay with skilled hands, and the meticulous decoration of finished vessels were deeply meditative processes. The soft squelch of wet clay, the gentle hum of the wheel, and the quiet concentration required to form a perfectly symmetrical pot would have been soothing sounds and sensations. Similarly, weaving linen on a loom involved repetitive, precise movements. The rhythmic clack of the shuttle, the taut pull of the threads, and the slow emergence of a patterned fabric would have created a hypnotic rhythm, allowing the weaver to enter a state of focused calm. These crafts provided a sense of accomplishment and a quiet outlet for creativity. For those with the leisure, the contemplation of existing art provided another path to relaxation. Tomb paintings, temple reliefs, and freestanding statues were not just historical records or religious expressions. They were works of profound beauty and meaning. To gaze upon a vibrant tomb painting depicting scenes of daily life, agricultural abundance, or the journey to the afterlife was to immerse oneself in a visual narrative. The intricate details, the harmonious compositions, and the symbolic meanings within the art invited quiet reflection. There was no rush to analyze or critique. Instead, it was an invitation to absorb the beauty and the message. The very act of slow observation, allowing the eyes to wander over the lines and colors, could be deeply calming. Sculptures, whether monumental or small, personal pieces, also offered opportunities for quiet contemplation. The smooth, cool surface of a granite statue, the idealized forms of deities or pharaohs, and the serene expressions carved into stone faces could evoke a sense of timelessness and peace. Touching the cool stone, tracing the contours of a carved figure, or simply sitting in its presence and absorbing its quiet power was a meditative experience. The stillness of the statues seemed to transmit a sense of enduring calm. Hieroglyphs, the sacred writing system of ancient Egypt, were themselves a form of art. Each sign was a miniature drawing depicting objects, animals, or human forms, combining both phonetic and ideographic meanings. For scribes, or those literate in this complex script, the act of reading or writing hieroglyphs was a deeply engaging and precise activity. The quiet rustle of a papyrus scroll, the delicate scratching of a reed pen on its surface, and the focused concentration required to interpret the intricate symbols would have fostered a state of profound mental absorption. It was an intellectual exercise that brought its own form of quiet satisfaction, a connection to ancient wisdom and artistic precision. Even for the illiterate, the sight of beautifully carved or painted hieroglyphs on temple walls or monuments would have inspired a sense of connection to the powerful, artistic expression of their culture. Beyond structured art forms, the very act of adorning one's body or decorating one's home could be a form of quiet, creative expression, and the elegant lines of functional items all contributed to an environment that fostered a sense of well-being. Arranging flowers in a vase, selecting a piece of jewelry to wear, or simply admiring the craftsmanship of everyday objects provided small moments of aesthetic pleasure. These were not grand artistic endeavors, but subtle infusions of beauty into daily life, offering quiet satisfaction and a gentle lift to the spirit, and meaning in a way that soothed the mind and enriched the spirit, providing a gentle pathway to relaxation at the close of the day. The soft gleam of polished gold or faience, the vibrant hues of natural pigments, artistic expression, and its contemplation in ancient Egypt were not always about grand public displays. They were often deeply personal and quiet activities that provided a profound sense of peace and mental focus, whether shaping clay, weaving thread, gazing at a painted wall, or interpreting a hieroglyphic text. These pursuits allowed the ancient Egyptian to engage with beauty, order. Chapter 9: The Pursuit of Beauty and Adornment. As the last tasks of the day concluded, and the ancient Egyptian sought comfort and peace, the pursuit of beauty and personal adornment often became a quiet, self-nurturing ritual. These practices, far from being mere vanity, were deeply intertwined with hygiene, social identity, and a profound appreciation for aesthetics. The meticulous application of cosmetics, the selection of jewelry, and the comfort of simple clothing all contributed to a sense of well-being and a gentle transition into the quiet hours of evening. Cosmetics played a significant role in daily life for both men and women, extending beyond mere decoration. Kohl, for instance, a dark eye paint made from galena or malachite, was applied to the eyelids and around the eyes. While certainly enhancing appearance, it also served a practical purpose. It helped reduce glare from the intense sun and acted as a mild antiseptic, protecting the eyes from dust and insects. The careful application of kohl with a small stick or brush was a focused, almost meditative act, drawing precise lines around the eyes. The subtle, earthy scent of the kohl and the cool, soft touch of the applicator against the skin were sensory experiences that marked this moment of self-care. Various oils and unguents, often infused with fragrant resins or flowers, were essential for skin care. After bathing, these rich emollient substances would be smoothed onto the skin to moisturize, protect against the dry climate, and impart a subtle fragrance. Oils derived from moringa, castor, or olive trees were common, and limbs would have been deeply relaxing, a tactile form of self-soothing. The slow, deliberate massage of these fragrant oils into the skin, particularly on the face, neck, the lingering aroma of lotus, lily, or frankincense on the skin would have been a gentle, personal perfume, contributing to a sense of freshness and calm. These were not harsh, chemical scents, but natural, earthy fragrances that settled softly. Hair, whether natural or in the form of elaborate wigs, was also a focus of nightly attention. Wigs, made from human hair or vegetable fibers, were meticulously cleaned, styled, and stored. The quiet brushing of a wig, the careful arranging of its braids or curls, and the application of fragrant conditioners were precise, unhurried tasks. For those who wore their natural hair, combing it with a wooden or bone comb and applying oils to keep it healthy and lustrous was a similar ritual. The gentle pull of the comb, the soft sheen of the newly oiled hair, and the familiar rhythm of the grooming process contributed to a sense of order and personal comfort. Jewelry was worn by all social classes, though the materials and intricacy varied. Beyond its aesthetic appeal, jewelry often carried symbolic meaning or served as protective amulets. Bead necklaces, bracelets, anklets, and rings, crafted from faïences, carnelian, lapis lazuli, turquoise, gold, or silver, were common. The quiet selection of which pieces to wear or to place carefully aside for the night was a small act of personal choice and aesthetic appreciation. The cool touch of beads against the skin, the subtle jingle of a bracelet, or the soft gleam of metal in the lamplight added a sensory layer to the evening routine. These pieces were not just adornments, but often personal talismans, providing a quiet sense of security and connection to deeper meanings. Clothing in ancient Egypt was primarily made from linen, a lightweight, breathable fabric perfectly suited to the warm climate. The process of dressing and undressing involved simple, flowing garments, kilts for men, and simple sheath dresses for women. The feel of clean, cool linen against the skin after a bath was immensely comfortable and refreshing. The soft rustle of the fabric as one moved, and the sensation of its coolness, were tactile pleasures that eased the body into a state of relaxation. The selection of a fresh garment for the next day, or the careful folding of the day's worn clothes, was a quiet domestic task performed with an unhurried grace. Even in the most basic aspects of daily life, there was an underlying appreciation for beauty and a quiet dedication to personal presentation, a way of nurturing the body and mind, making them ready for the restorative peace of the evening. The simple act of ensuring one felt clean, smelled pleasant, and wore comfortable garments contributed significantly to an individual's sense of well-being and inner calm. These rituals of beauty and adornment were not just about outward appearance. They were about a quiet, personal engagement with the self, the faint scent of perfume, the feel of smooth skin, and the comforting weight of a cherished piece of jewelry. All contributed to a serene transition from the day's demands to the quietude of rest. Chapter 10. The Rhythm of the Nile. The river as a source of calm. The Nile River was the lifeblood of ancient Egypt, dictating its agricultural cycles, facilitating its trade, and shaping its very landscape. Beyond its vital practical functions, however, the Nile also served as a profound source of calm and contemplation for the ancient Egyptian. Its constant, gentle presence, its rhythmic flow, and the various activities it supported provided a natural backdrop for relaxation and a soothing connection to the eternal cycles of nature. From the moment one woke until the moment one slept, the Nile was an omnipresent force. Its gentle murmur was often the background hum to daily life, a constant reminder of the source of all sustenance. For those living directly on its banks, the quiet lapping of water against the shore or the hulls of boats would have been a familiar and deeply soothing sound. It was a sound that spoke of continuity, of life, and of a natural order that transcended daily anxieties. Boating on the Nile was a common activity, whether for transport, trade, or leisure. For pleasure, a small papyrus skiff or a simple wooden boat might be used. The sensation of gliding silently over the water, propelled by gentle oars, or a favorable breeze, was inherently peaceful. The rhythmic dip of the oar, the soft splash as it entered and exited the water, and the subtle creak of the boat's timbers would have created a tranquil symphony. Looking out across the wide expanse of the river, seeing the verdant fields on either side and the distant desert beyond, offered a perspective that quieted the mind. The world seemed to expand and slow down when viewed from the water. Fishing was another activity that brought many to the river and offered a quiet, contemplative escape. Whether casting a simple hook and line from the bank or using a net from a small boat, fishing demanded patience and stillness. The long stretches of quiet waiting, punctuated only by the subtle tug of a line or the gentle splash of a fish, fostered a meditative state. The sunlight glinting on the water, the quiet murmurs of the river, and the focused concentration on the task at hand combined to create a profound sense of calm. It was a solitary pleasure, a way to connect with the river's abundance in a peaceful manner. The sounds of the Nile itself contributed significantly to its calming influence. The steady, unhurried flow of the current, the soft ripples created by passing breezes, and the distant calls of water birds created a natural soundscape for contemplation. Even the sounds of working boats, the creak of ropes, the distant chant of boatmen, the gentle thud of cargo, were often rhythmic and familiar, blending into the background rather than disrupting peace. The air above the river often felt cooler in the evenings, carrying a refreshing dampness that offered relief from the day's heat. Watching the sunset over the Nile was a daily spectacle that offered a profound moment of reflection. As the sun dipped towards the western desert, its fiery rays would paint the river's surface in a dazzling array of colors, golds, oranges, and deep purples. The long, shimmering path of light across the water, the silhouettes of boats gliding by, and the gradual fading of light into twilight created a majestic yet calming scene. This quiet observation of nature's grand design served as a powerful reminder of the cyclical nature of life, of beauty, and of the inevitable transition from day to night. It was a moment to pause, to simply be, and to appreciate the enduring grandeur of their world. The Nile was not just a provider, it was a constant, calming presence in the lives of the ancient Egyptians. Its steady rhythm, its gentle sounds, and the opportunities it offered for quiet contemplation on its waters or along its banks made it a profound source of relaxation and quieted the mind, preparing the body for the deep rest of the night. The river was a reminder of the enduring flow of life, a natural balm that soothed the senses. Its very existence brought a quiet certainty to their world. Chapter 11. The comfort of community, social bonds, and shared moments. While individual relaxation rituals were vital, the ancient Egyptian also found profound comfort and peace in the embrace of their community. The strong bonds of family and friends provided a supportive framework that eased the anxieties of daily life and offered shared moments of gentle relaxation after the day's demands. These social interactions, often simple and unhurried, contributed significantly to a sense of well-being and belonging. Gatherings of family members were a central feature of the ancient Egyptian evening. After the evening meal, families would often remain together, perhaps in the central courtyard or in the main reception room, depending on the weather. These were not always occasions for grand entertainment, but rather for quiet conversation and comfortable companionship. The low murmur of voices, the soft rustle of movements, and the occasional gentle laughter would have filled the space, creating an atmosphere of warmth and security. Children would often be present, their quieter play blending into the background as the adults talked. Sharing simple conversations was a key aspect of these social bonds. Family members might recount the events of their day, discuss plans for the morrow, or share anecdotes and observations. There was no pressure for dramatic pronouncements. Rather, it was the gentle exchange of daily happenings, affirming connections and reinforcing familial ties. The quiet cadence of familiar voices, speaking of familiar things, was inherently soothing. It fostered a sense of understanding and empathy, knowing that one was not alone in facing the challenges and joys of life. Friendships also played a vital role in providing comfort. Neighbors and close friends might visit in the evening, sharing a cup of beer, some food, or simply quiet company. These informal gatherings were opportunities for mutual support and light-hearted interaction. The soft greetings, the shared silences, and the comfortable presence of trusted companions offered a quiet strength. The knowing glances, the shared jokes, and the unspoken understanding between friends contributed to a sense of ease and belonging that eased the mind. The support systems within the community were robust and essential. In a society where life could be unpredictable, the knowledge that one's neighbors, relatives, and friends would offer assistance in times of need was profoundly comforting. This collective security allowed individuals to relax more fully, knowing that they were part of a larger, interconnected web of support. The quiet act of offering help or receiving it graciously built layers of trust and solidarity that reduced personal burdens. This underlying sense of communal care fostered a deep-seated peace of mind. Respect for elders was deeply ingrained in ancient Egyptian society, and their presence within the household or community brought a sense of wisdom and continuity. Listening to the stories and advice of older generations, or simply being in their comforting presence, provided a quiet anchor. Children, too, were cherished members of the community, and their innocent presence brought joy and lightness. The intergenerational flow of daily life, where young and old coexisted and supported each other, created a harmonious environment that contributed to overall tranquility. The soft, reassuring presence of older family members, perhaps watching the younger ones, was a comforting sight. Shared laughter, though perhaps not boisterous every evening, was a precious commodity. A gentle chuckle at a shared memory, a quiet smile at a child's antics, or a soft laugh at a familiar joke would break the silence, adding warmth and light to the evening atmosphere. These small moments of shared joy were potent reminders of the simple pleasures of human connection. They relieved tension and fostered a sense of well-being that prepared the body and mind for rest. The comfort of community, manifested through simple gatherings, quiet conversations, mutual support, and the presence of loved ones, was a powerful source of relaxation for the ancient Egyptian. It provided a sense of belonging, security, and shared humanity that eased the individual's burdens and fostered a profound sense of peace. The quiet strength of social bonds allowed the ancient Egyptian to unwind fully, knowing they were part of a supportive and caring world as the night descended. Chapter 12: The Wisdom of the Scribes. Reading and learning for a select few in ancient Egypt, primarily scribes, priests, and the educated elite. The pursuit of knowledge through reading and learning offered a distinct and profoundly quiet form of relaxation at the close of the day. In a society where literacy was a specialized skill, the ability to engage with written texts provided a unique avenue for mental engagement and a meditative escape from the mundane. The quiet rustle of papyrus, the focused concentration on hieroglyphs. Scribes held a privileged position in ancient Egyptian society, and their unique leisure often revolved around the quiet pursuit of knowledge. After the administrative duties of the day were completed, a scribe might retreat to a quiet corner of their home or workplace to consult a papyrus scroll. This was not work, but a personal engagement with texts that expanded their understanding of the world, history, or spirituality. The very act of unrolling a papyrus scroll carefully, deliberately, was a calming gesture, revealing the ancient words and images. Papyrus scrolls, often lengthy and meticulously crafted, contained everything from religious hymns and wisdom literature to historical records, medical treatises, and literary tales. Ostraca, fragments of pottery or limestone, served as cheaper, more readily available surfaces for shorter texts, notes, or practice exercises. The tactile sensation of holding a smoothed ostracon or the delicate feel of a papyrus sheet added to the sensory experience of reading. The meditative act of copying texts was a fundamental part of a scribe's training, and often a quiet pastime. A scribe would meticulously reproduce hieroglyphs or hieratic script onto a new sheet of papyrus. This required immense focus, precision, and patience. The soft, scratching sound of the reed pen on the fibrous surface of the papyrus, the careful formation of each intricate sign, and the rhythmic dipping of the pen into the inkwell created a deeply engrossing and calming rhythm. It was a form of active meditation, where the mind was fully absorbed in the intricate beauty of the script and the meaning of the words. The subtle scent of the ink, perhaps made from soot and water, would have added to the atmosphere of quiet scholarship. Wisdom literature, such as the teachings of Tehotep or the maxims of Ani, offered guidance on ethics, morality, and how to live a good life in accordance with Mat. To sit quietly, absorbing these ancient lessons, pondering their meaning, and applying them to one's own life. It was a way to connect with the accumulated knowledge of generations, finding reassurance and clarity in the wisdom of the past. The quiet turning of a scroll, the silent movement of eyes across lines of text, fostered a deep sense of contemplation. The act of learning, whether through formal study or personal exploration of texts, was seen as a virtuous pursuit that brought inner peace. It cultivated a disciplined mind, enhanced understanding, and offered a refuge from the transient nature of daily worries. For the ancient Egyptian scribe, the quiet hours spent with scrolls and astraca were not merely intellectual pursuits. All contributed to a profound sense of intellectual and spiritual calm before the arrival of sleep, but a deep engagement with the very fabric of their culture and beliefs, fostering a sense of purpose and tranquility. The soft lamplight illuminating the characters on the papyrus, the stillness of the room. It was a unique form of relaxation, reserved for those who could delve into the silent world of written words. Chapter 13. The Stars and the Cosmos. Ancient Egyptian Astronomy. As the deep Egyptian night settled over the land, blanketing the bustling world in darkness, the ancient Egyptian often turned their gaze upwards, towards the vast, star-strewn canvas of the cosmos. In an age before pervasive, artificial light, the night sky was a spectacle of breathtaking clarity, offering not just visual grandeur, but also a profound source of quiet contemplation and comfort. The observation of the stars, their cyclical movements, and the myths woven around them provided a unique pathway to relaxation and a sense of connection to something eternal. For the ancient Egyptian, the night sky was not just a distant, abstract phenomenon. It was an integral part of their world, deeply connected to their calendar, their religion, and their understanding of existence. The daily appearance of the sun god Ra, his journey across the sky and through the underworld, was mirrored by the consistent, predictable movements of the stars. This cosmic order, visible nightly, brought a profound sense of reassurance. The slow, majestic rotation of the celestial sphere above, seen from a rooftop or an open field, was a calming reminder of universal stability. Observing the constellations was a source of wonder and quiet engagement. While ancient Egyptian constellations differed from modern Western ones, they recognized distinct patterns of stars and wove myths and stories around them. The imperishable stars, for example, which corresponded to stars in the circumpolar region that never set below the horizon, were particularly significant. They were associated with eternity and the afterlife, offering a powerful symbol of permanence in a world of change. Gazing at these unwavering points of light, imagining the divine beings they represented, would have fostered a sense of peace and a connection to the enduring forces of the universe. The very act of identifying these stellar patterns, silently tracing their forms with one's gaze, was a calming mental exercise. Astronomical observations were meticulously carried out, primarily by priests in temples, to regulate the calendar and predict important events, especially the annual inundation of the Nile. Even for the layperson, the general understanding of these celestial rhythms contributed to a sense of order and predictability in their lives. The heliacal rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, which coincided with the beginning of the Nile flood, was a pivotal moment. Knowing that these cosmic events would reliably occur, guided by divine will, offered a deep sense of security. The quiet anticipation of these celestial alignments, understanding their significance, brought a subtle comfort. The profound silence of the night, amplified by the vastness of the open sky, was an essential component of this cosmic contemplation. Without the pervasive noise of modern life, the individual could truly immerse themselves in the quiet grandeur above. The only sounds would be the gentle sigh of the wind, the distant calls of nocturnal creatures, or the subtle hum of the earth itself. This immersive quiet allowed the mind to expand, to ponder the infinite, and to feel a sense of humble belonging within the grand design of the cosmos. It was a moment of profound introspection, unburdened by the specificities of daily concerns. The cyclical nature of the cosmos, so evident in the daily passage of the sun and the nightly procession of the stars, provided a powerful metaphor for life, death, and rebirth, concepts central to ancient Egyptian belief. This understanding brought reassurance, just as the sun was reborn each morning and the stars returned each night, so too would life continue beyond earthly existence. This philosophical and spiritual comfort, derived from observing the heavens, helped to alleviate anxieties about the unknown and fostered a profound sense of inner peace. The quiet acceptance of these grand cycles allowed for a deeper, more peaceful sleep. The contemplation of the stars and the cosmos was a unique and powerful source of relaxation for the ancient Egyptian. It offered a sense of wonder, a connection to timeless patterns, and a profound philosophical and spiritual comfort. A moment of profound perspective that dwarfed daily worries and prepared the mind for a truly restful slumber, secure in the knowledge of a universe both ordered and eternal. Under the vast, silent canopy of the Egyptian night sky, the individual could find a quiet solace. Chapter 14: Personal Reflection and Mindfulness amidst the structured routines and communal activities. Ancient Egyptians also found profound solace in moments of quiet personal reflection and an inherent form of mindfulness. These were not formal meditative practices, as understood in some Eastern traditions. Such quiet introspection provided a deep pathway to relaxation, allowing the mind to gently process the day's experiences and settle into a state of inner peace before sleep. Moments of quiet introspection often occurred naturally as the day concluded, whether sitting in a shaded courtyard, lying on a mat on a cool rooftop, or simply resting on their bed. Individuals would find themselves in a state of passive reflection. The fading light of dusk and the growing silence encouraged a turning inward. Thoughts would drift, revisiting events of the day, was a gentle way to mentally sort and release the day's accumulation. Gratitude for the day's blessings was a common and powerful element of this reflection. In a world often defined by hard labor and reliance on the Nile's predictable bounty, the simple gifts of sustenance, health, and family were deeply appreciated. A quiet moment spent acknowledging the provision of bread and beer, the safety of the home, or the well-being of loved ones, fostered a profound sense of contentment. This positive focus shifted the mind away from potential worries, cultivating a calming perspective. The silent acknowledgement of these blessings brought a deep, soothing sense of appreciation. Conversely, there was also a quiet acceptance of life's challenges. Ancient Egyptian wisdom literature often spoke of the inevitability of hardship and the importance of resilience. Rather than dwelling on difficulties with agitation, reflection might involve a calm acknowledgement of a difficult task completed, a minor setback endured, or a challenge yet to face. This acceptance, rooted in a pragmatic understanding of life's realities, allowed for a peaceful surrender rather than anxious resistance. It was a form of mental release, allowing the day's burdens to be gently set down rather than carried into the night. Mindfulness, in its essence, is the practice of being present in the moment, observing without judgment. For the ancient Egyptian, this might manifest in the quiet enjoyment of sensory details as evening descended. The feel of cool linen against the skin after a bath, the faint aroma of cooked food lingering in the air, the gentle sounds of crickets chirping, or the soft glow of an oil lamp. These small, simple observations, fully appreciated in the present, grounded the individual and drew their attention away from future worries or past regrets. It was an intuitive practice of focusing on the immediate, tangible comforts. The methodical act of grinding grain, the repetitive motion of weaving, or the careful application of coal could all be performed with a focused attention that quieted the mind. These were not rushed or hurried activities, but often performed at a steady, deliberate pace that encouraged a state of flow, where the mind became absorbed in the task itself. This absorption in the present task created a mental space free from external distractions, leading to a calm and settled state. The pursuit of inner peace was an overarching goal, often linked to the concept of mat, balance, and order. Through reflection, ancient Egyptians sought to align their internal state with this cosmic principle, identifying areas where balance might have been lost during the day and gently striving to restore it through contemplation or resolution, contributed to a profound sense of inner harmony. This quiet striving for equilibrium was not stressful, but a natural aspiration, like returning to a state of natural rest after exertion. These moments of personal reflection and intuitive mindfulness were crucial for the ancient Egyptian in unwinding after a long day. They provided a mental space for processing, for gratitude, for acceptance, and for grounding oneself in the present moment. This quiet internal work fostered a deep sense of inner peace, allowing the body and mind to truly relax and prepare for the restorative sleep that followed. It was a silent dialogue with the self, leading to profound tranquility. Chapter 15: Preparations for Eternity. The calming influence of the afterlife beliefs. Perhaps one of the most profound and unique sources of relaxation and comfort for the ancient Egyptian, particularly as day turned to night, was their deeply held belief in the afterlife. Far from being a source of fear or dread, the Egyptian understanding of death and the journey beyond was structured, detailed, and ultimately profoundly comforting. This assured vision of eternity provided a robust spiritual framework that alleviated anxiety about the unknown and allowed individuals to rest in a state of tranquil certainty. The ancient Egyptians did not view death as an end, but rather as a transition, a natural continuation of life in a different, often idealized realm. The journey to the duat, the underworld, was perilous but navigable, provided one lived righteously and adhered to the proper rituals. This conceptualization transformed the terrifying unknown into a well-defined pathway, knowing that there was a continuity of existence, a life beyond this one. The quiet contemplation of this eternal journey, a path laid out by the gods, brought a deep sense of peace. Funerary rituals, meticulously developed over millennia, were designed not to instill fear, but to ensure a successful transition for the deceased. The careful mummification process, the elaborate tomb decorations, and the offerings made were all acts of care and preparation, not expressions of morbid fascination. For the living, participating in or observing these rituals, even in abstract, provided a structured approach to grief and remembrance. It offered a sense of agency and purpose in the face of loss, channeling sorrow into meaningful action. This systematic approach to death brought a measure of calm and order to an otherwise chaotic human experience. The afterlife itself was often depicted as an idealized version of earthly life, a field of reeds where one could eternally cultivate crops, feast, and enjoy the company of loved ones and gods. There was no concept of eternal damnation in the Abrahamic sense. The judgment of the heart by Osiris in the Hall of Mat was about purity and balance, leading to a blissful existence, or a secondary obliteration, not endless suffering. This positive vision of eternity, focusing on continuity, abundance, and reunion, offered a powerful source of hope and comfort. The quiet thought of a peaceful existence in the afterlife, free from earthly worries, was deeply soothing. The journey through the duat, while challenging, was guided by various protective spells and divine assistance, meticulously recorded in texts like the Book of the Dead. These spells and illustrations were essentially travel guides for the deceased, equipping them with the knowledge and power to overcome obstacles and successfully reach the blessed fields of Aru. It reduced anxiety about the unknown perils of death, transforming it into a navigable, albeit sacred, passage. The quiet assurance of divine protection for the soul was a powerful comfort. The belief in the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth, mirrored in the daily cycle of the sun, further reinforced the comforting aspects of afterlife beliefs. This powerful cosmic metaphor provided a continuous visual reminder of renewal and continuity, diminishing the finality of death. The quiet observation of the sunrise and sunset, contemplating its deeper meaning, subtly reinforced the promise of resurrection. The pervasive influence of afterlife beliefs permeated daily life, subtly shaping attitudes and providing a deep undercurrent of spiritual comfort. The understanding that every action, every adherence to math, contributed to a favorable destiny in the hereafter, instilled a sense of purpose without generating anxiety. It encouraged righteous living, not out of fear, but out of a desire for harmonious continuity. This profound sense of spiritual security allowed the ancient Egyptian to face the inevitable end of their earthly journey with composure, and thus to find deeper peace and truly rest after a long day, knowing their ultimate destination was one of eternal tranquility. Conclusion. echoes of tranquility and multifaceted ways in which a people living thousands of years ago sought and found tranquility after their arduous days, and peace seamlessly integrated into the fabric of their daily lives. As the last words on ancient Egyptian relaxation settle into the quiet air, we can reflect on the profound their methods, though seemingly simple by modern standards, reveal a deep understanding of human needs for rest, comfort. We have journeyed through the domestic sanctuary of their homes, where thick mud brick walls offered cool refuge and functional furnishings invited repose. We observed their meticulous rituals of ablution and personal hygiene, where water, oils, and gentle scents cleansed both body and spirit. We shared in their culinary comforts, the simple yet sustaining meals of bread, beer, and vegetables, enjoyed in the quiet company of family, where the quiet concentration of board games, the soothing cadence of storytelling, and the soft melodies of music provided mental diversion. We then settled into the sweet silence of their sleep, understanding the comforting practicality of their beds, the profound significance of their dreams, and the quiet rituals that ensured restful repose. We stepped into the soothing embrace of their gardens and outdoor spaces, experiencing the tranquility of ponds, the rustle of leaves, and the cool evening air. Our path continued to their spiritual solace, witnessing how personal piety, humble offerings, and a deep connection to Mat brought inner peace and a sense of cosmic order. We explored the quiet satisfaction of artistic expression, from the meditative rhythm of crafting to the contemplative beauty of their hieroglyphs and monumental art. We appreciated their pursuit of beauty and adornment, recognizing how simple cosmetics, jewelry, and comfortable linen clothing contributed to a sense of well-being and self-care, a source of quiet observation, and a pathway for peaceful movement. We found comfort in the embrace of community, where social bonds, shared conversations, and mutual support eased burdens and fostered a sense of belonging. For the educated, we glimpsed the quiet wisdom of the Scribes, who found deep relaxation in the contemplative act of reading and learning from ancient texts. We then gazed upwards, acknowledging how the observation of the stars and the cosmos provided a sense of wonder, order, and spiritual connection. Finally, we delved into their profound personal reflection and mindfulness, discovering how gratitude, acceptance, and an intuitive focus on the present moment brought inner peace. And perhaps, most uniquely, we understood how their deeply ingrained beliefs in the afterlife, far from being morbid, offered an unparalleled calming influence, transforming death into a manageable transition and assuring eternal rest. The ancient Egyptians, despite the physical demands of their agrarian society, understood the profound human need for relaxation. They cultivated it not through elaborate spectacles, but through simple, consistent routines, a deep connection to their environment, a rich spiritual life, and strong communal bonds. And the comfort found in the simple rhythms of life are timeless human aspirations. Their methods were often quiet, repetitive, and deeply mindful, designed to soothe the senses and calm the spirit. As the metaphorical oil lamp of our historical journey dims to a soft glow, we are left with the gentle echoes of their tranquility. These echoes whisper across the millennia, reminding us that the pursuit of peace, the desire for rest after labor, the wisdom of the ancient Egyptians, in their quiet ways of unwinding, continues to offer a gentle lullaby, guiding us towards our own restorative slumber. The silence now is not empty, but filled with the lasting peace of their ancient ways. Chapter 16. The art of storytelling, more than just entertainment, beyond the general scope of entertainment. The art of storytelling held a special, almost sacred, place in ancient Egyptian relaxation. It was more than just a pastime. It was a deeply ingrained cultural practice that provided solace, conveyed wisdom, and fostered a profound sense of connection after the day's work faded. The rhythm of a well-told tale, the shared world of imagination, and the quiet absorption in a narrative offered a powerful pathway to winding down as evening descended and families gathered in the flickering light of an oil lamp or beneath the vast canvas of the night sky. The storyteller would begin. Often, this role fell to an elder, a parent, or someone within the community known for their memory and eloquent delivery. The very act of listening was a gentle surrender, allowing the mind to drift from daily concerns into the unfolding narrative. The initial murmurs of the gathered family would quieten to a hushed attentiveness, broken only by the occasional sigh or soft intake of breath as the story deepened. The tales themselves were rich and varied, drawing from the vast tapestry of Egyptian life and belief. There were myths of creation, recounting the heroic deeds of the gods, and the ordering of the cosmos, providing a reassuring sense of structure to the universe. Legends of legendary pharaohs and wise viziers offered moral lessons and historical context, grounding the listeners in their past. Folk tales, featuring clever animals or ordinary people overcoming challenges, provided both entertainment and subtle teachings on human nature and resilience. The language used by the storyteller was often rhythmic and evocative, employing repetition and vivid imagery to draw listeners deeper into the narrative. The steady cadence of the voice, the pauses for emphasis, and the changes in tone would create a hypnotic effect, a vocal lullaby that captivated the audience without demanding strenuous intellectual effort. There was no pressure to analyze or debate. The purpose was simply to absorb, to feel, and to imagine. The sounds of the spoken words filled the quiet space, creating a shared world that transcended the immediate surroundings. For the listeners, storytelling was a deeply immersive experience. It stimulated the imagination, allowing them to visualize distant lands, mythical creatures, and ancient heroes. This mental journey provided a gentle escape, a way to leave behind the dust and demands of the real world for a brief period. The shared laughter at a humorous turn, the quiet gasp at a moment of suspense, and the contented silence at a satisfying resolution fostered a strong sense of communal bonding. It was a shared experience of comfort and cultural heritage. Even after the story concluded, its echoes lingered. The characters and their adventures might be quietly discussed, or the moral of the tale pondered in the mind. This gentle afterglow of the narrative continued to provide a soft mental engagement, preventing the mind from racing or dwelling on anxieties. The stories provided a framework for understanding their world, their gods, and themselves, offering solace and meaning in a comforting, accessible form. The art of storytelling in ancient Egypt was a profound form of relaxation, weaving together entertainment, wisdom, and community. It was a practice that quieted the mind, nourished the spirit, and provided a gentle, collective transition into the peaceful realm of night. The magic of the spoken word, passed down through generations, truly became a comforting embrace after a long and demanding day. Chapter 17. The Serenity of Manual Labor. Repetitive tasks as relaxation. While the ancient Egyptians certainly engaged in strenuous labor, many of their more common, repetitive manual tasks, particularly those performed within the home or at a measured pace, could paradoxically become a source of quiet relaxation at day's end. The rhythmic nature of these activities, demanding focus but not intense mental strain, often induced a meditative state, providing a calming transition from the more demanding work of the fields or workshops. Consider the quiet, continuous motion of grinding grain. This daily chore, essential for bread making, involved rubbing a stone grinder over a larger stone or a saddle quern. The steady, rhythmic scraping sound, the feeling of the coarse grains gradually turning into fine flour, and the subtle scent of the wheat in the air could become almost hypnotic. It was a task that engaged the body in a repetitive motion, allowing the mind to quieten, perhaps to drift into gentle thought or simply to rest in the present moment. The predictability of the movement offered a sense of control and accomplishment. Weaving, another ubiquitous household activity, similarly offered a pathway to relaxation and the slow, visible emergence of the fabric. The loom, whether horizontal or vertical, demanded consistent, deliberate actions, the passing of the shuttle through the warp threads, the rhythmic beat of the batten to tighten the weave, the soft clacking of the loom, the gentle tension of the threads, and the gradual appearance of a pattern or plain cloth were deeply engaging without being exhausting. It was a creative process that unfolded slowly, providing a sustained sense of quiet purpose. The visual satisfaction of seeing the fabric grow was a gentle reward. Even the preparation of food, beyond the grinding of grain, involved many repetitive actions that could be calming. The methodical sorting of lentils or beans, the gentle washing of vegetables in a basin, the careful peeling of fruits, or the shaping of bread dough. Each of these tasks involved focused physical engagement that allowed the mind to disengage from broader concerns. The soft sounds of water, the rustle of produce, the gentle pressure of hands on dough, these were the quiet accompaniments to a mind finding a tranquil rhythm. Mending and maintaining household items also fell into this category. The careful stitching of torn linen, the retying of a loose sandal, or the sharpening of a simple tool were tasks that required concentration and steady hands. The quiet efficiency of these repairs, the satisfaction of restoring something to usefulness, provided a calm sense of order and competence. The small, precise movements involved could be surprisingly meditative, focusing the mind on the immediate action. The key to these tasks becoming relaxing was their inherent rhythm and the absence of urgent pressure in the evening hours. Unlike the demanding, sun-baked work in the fields or the bustling environment of a workshop, these domestic chores were often performed at a slower, more contemplative pace. They allowed for a merging of physical activity with a quiet mind, a state where the body was engaged, but the spirit was at ease, and the evening's rest, allowing the mind to unwind by focusing on the tangible, rhythmic processes of daily life. This type of manual labor, focused and repetitive, served as a form of active meditation for the ancient Egyptian. It provided a gentle bridge between the day's demands. The serenity found in these simple, repeated actions was a subtle but powerful component of their overall evening tranquility. Chapter 18. The Comfort of Familiar Sense. Olfactory relaxation beyond the visual and auditory comforts. The sense of smell played a subtle yet significant role in how ancient Egyptians found relaxation and peace after a long day. Familiar scents, both natural and crafted, permeated their homes and surroundings, acting as olfactory anchors that signaled comfort, cleanliness, and the transition to evening repose. These aromas, often gentle and earthy, contributed profoundly to a calming atmosphere. As the sun began its descent, one of the most comforting and pervasive scents would have been that of cooking food. The earthy aroma of baking bread, the subtle sweetness of simmering vegetables, or the occasional rich scent of roasted meat or fish would waft through the air. These were not just hunger cues, they were signals of sustenance, of home, and of the communal gathering that was soon to take place. The smell of a prepared meal was inherently reassuring, a promise of nourishment and warmth after the day's exertions. The scent of fresh water, especially important in a hot, dry climate, was another source of olfactory comfort. The Nile itself carried a unique, earthy smell, particularly after the annual inundation when it brought fertile silt. Within the home, the clean, cool scent of water drawn from a well or stored in a large pottery jar would have been refreshing. After ablutions, the lingering, clean scent of skin, perhaps mingled with the subtle aroma of natural natron, signaled purity and freshness. Perfumes and scented oils, as mentioned previously, were widely used and were a personal source of relaxation. Made from natural resins like frankincense and myrrh, or infused with essences from flowers such as lotus, lily, and rose, these fragrances were applied to the skin, hair, and clothing. As the evening progressed, the delicate, often sweet or subtly woody aromas would gently release, creating a personal cloud of calm. These were not overpowering scents, but subtle, natural fragrances that blended seamlessly into the environment, promoting a sense of well-being and a quiet indulgence. Beyond personal adornment, the environment itself offered comforting aromas. Gardens, when present, filled the air with the fragrance of blooming flowers, the earthy scent of damp soil after watering, and the green aroma of growing plants. Even the dry desert wind, as it cooled in the evening, might carry the faint, wild scent of distant desert flora or the clean smell of dry sand. These natural perfumes connected the individual to their environment, grounding them in the familiar and the beautiful. The use of incense, though often associated with religious rituals in temples, also found its place in the home. Small pellets of frankincense or myrrh, perhaps gently burned on a small censer, would release fragrant smoke. This light, aromatic haze, rising slowly into the air, created an atmosphere of sanctity and peace. The act of lighting the incense and watching the smoke curl upwards while inhaling its calming scent was a quiet, almost ritualistic way to purify the space and soothe the mind. It signaled a sacred transition, a moment of reverence and peace. Even the materials of the home carried their own comforting scents. The warm, dry smell of mud brick, a fundamental component of every dwelling, was a familiar and grounding aroma. The subtle scent of dried reeds from mats or the clean, fresh smell of stored linen contributed to the overall sensory experience of domestic calm. These were the underlying, often unnoticed olfactory signatures of home and security. The comfort of familiar scents was a powerful, often subconscious, element in the ancient Egyptians' path to relaxation. These aromas, whether from cooking, personal care, nature, or domestic materials, created a sensory landscape of peace and familiarity. They gently guided the mind towards rest, providing a subtle yet profound layer of tranquility as the day drew to its serene conclusion. Chapter 19. The Art of Doing Nothing, Embracing Stillness. In a world driven by physical labor and the constant demands of survival, the ancient Egyptians, like many societies, implicitly understood the profound art of doing nothing. This was not idleness in the modern sense, but a conscious embracing of stillness, a quiet pause that allowed the body and mind to truly decompress after a long day. These moments of unhurried repose were vital for complete relaxation, providing a mental and physical reset. This embracing of stillness might take many forms, often dictated by one's surroundings. For many, it involved simply sitting in their courtyard or on their rooftop as dusk settled. There was no specific task to accomplish, no conversation that needed to be initiated. It was a time to simply be present, to observe the world gently fading around them. The silence of these moments was not empty, but filled with the subtle sounds of the transitioning day, the distant call of a bird, the faint murmur of the river, the soft sigh of the evening breeze. In these quiet periods, the ancient Egyptian might gaze at the changing colors of the sky, watching the vibrant hues of sunset soften into twilight, then deepen into the inky blackness adorned with stars. This passive observation of nature's grand spectacle was deeply soothing, allowing the mind to expand beyond personal concerns and find a sense of connection to the vastness of the cosmos. It was a visual meditation, requiring no effort, simply allowing the beauty to unfold. The sensation of the cool evening air on the skin after a hot day was a profound physical comfort, inviting stillness. Lying on a mat, perhaps on the cool roof, feeling the subtle currents of air, encouraged the body to relax completely. There was no need to move, no urge to engage in activity. It was a physical surrender to the comfort of the environment, allowing tired muscles to unwind and the heat to dissipate. For many, this period of stillness was also a time for a quiet mental pause. After a day filled with tasks, decisions, and interactions, the mind needed space to simply exist without active engagement. This allowed thoughts to drift in and out without being clung to, a form of internal decluttering. It was a conscious effort to release the mental grip on the day's events, letting them dissipate like the last rays of sunlight. This mental quietude was essential for preparing the brain for truly restorative sleep. Even the sounds surrounding these moments of stillness were gentle and non-intrusive. The distant sounds of the village preparing for night, the soft rustle of palm fronds, or the almost imperceptible hum of the desert, all blended into a soothing background rather than demanding attention. These ambient sounds complemented the quietude, preventing the silence from feeling oppressive. The art of doing nothing, of simply embracing stillness, was an intuitive form of relaxation practiced by the ancient Egyptians. It was a recognition that true rest required not just the cessation of physical activity, but also the quieting of the mind. By allowing themselves these unhurried moments of passive observation and gentle presence, they provided their bodies and spirits with the crucial space to fully decompress, preparing themselves for the deep and tranquil embrace of the night. It was a timeless wisdom, understood even in antiquity. Chapter 20. The Philosophy of Cycles, Trusting the Daily. Rhythm underlying all forms of ancient Egyptian relaxation was a profound philosophical understanding of cycles: the daily cycle of the sun, the annual cycle of the Nile, and the greater cycle of life, death, and rebirth. This deep-seated trust in predictable rhythms and an ordered cosmos provided an immense, often subconscious, source of calm and reassurance after a long day. It meant that even when the day was challenging, there was an inherent certainty that rest, renewal, and a fresh start would inevitably follow. The most immediate and tangible cycle was that of the sun. Its daily journey across the sky, from the brilliant dawn to the fiery sunset, was a visible metaphor for all existence. Each evening, as Ra, the sun god, descended into the Duat, the underworld, the ancient Egyptian knew with absolute certainty that he would be reborn in the east the next morning. This unwavering predictability was a profound source of psychological comfort. The setting sun was not an end, but a promise of renewal, allowing for a peaceful surrender to the darkness. The quiet fading of light brought not fear, but a comforting sense of inevitability. The annual inundation of the Nile was another fundamental cycle that dictated life in Egypt. The yearly flood, bringing fertile silt to the fields, was vital for their agricultural prosperity and survival. The consistent return of the flood, year after year, despite its occasional variations, fostered a deep trust in the benevolent order of the world, even when the flood was less than ideal. The underlying rhythm and the eventual recession of the waters provided a powerful sense of resilience and continuity. Knowing that the life-giving waters would return allowed for a release of anxieties about the future, fostering a quiet patience. This understanding of cycles extended to their concept of time itself, which was often viewed as cyclical rather than linear. Events recurred, patterns repeated, and balance was continuously sought and restored. This perspective diminished the anxiety of individual misfortunes or temporary setbacks. If one day was particularly difficult, the cyclical nature of time suggested that better days, and certainly the opportunity for rest, would inevitably follow. This broad philosophical view provided a calming detachment from the immediate pressures, allowing for a more profound sense of peace. The grand cycle of life, death, and rebirth, intricately woven into their religious beliefs, offered the ultimate reassurance. As discussed in previous chapters, death was not seen as an ending, but a transformation, a transition to another phase of existence that mirrored the cycles of the sun and the Nile. This profound belief system meant that the ancient Egyptian could truly relax at the end of their earthly day, knowing that their journey would continue into an eternal, blessed realm. The quiet acceptance of this grand cosmic cycle brought unparalleled peace of mind. Embracing this philosophy of cycles encouraged a certain mindfulness and acceptance. It fostered patience, knowing that hard work would eventually lead to harvest, and that night would always bring rest. It reduced the need for constant struggle against circumstance, instead promoting a harmonious flow with the natural rhythms of life and the universe. This deep philosophical grounding allowed for a profound internal tranquility, a fundamental understanding that all things were in their proper order. Thus, the ancient Egyptian's ability to relax after a long day was not merely a matter of physical comfort or leisure activities. It was deeply rooted in a core philosophy that embraced the predictable, reassuring cycles of their world. This unwavering trust in the daily and grand cosmic rhythms provided an enduring sense of calm, allowing them to release the day's burdens and surrender to the profound, cyclical promise of rest and renewal. The very fabric of their belief system was a lullaby, guiding them into peaceful sleep.